What's going on, Jacob?
Doing well. We're here with the CEO of Sendoso. Really happy to have you here, Kris. I've had the pleasure of working with you for the past, I don't know, several months now on the SDR automation front at Sendoso. And stoked to hear about your experience building the SDR team at Sendoso, your philosophy on sales, and how you've seen the landscape evolve over the last few years since you started, and why you're leading towards a more of a Clay-powered automated outbound motion today.
Real quick, I'll give a quick background on myself for those listeners who may not have done their research on me. So I'm Kris Rudeegraap. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sendoso. Sendoso is a direct mail and gifting platform helping mostly B2B companies build pipeline, drive revenue, retain customers by sending stuff, and mostly physical things as well as e-gifts. Company started about 7 years ago. Before that, spent about a decade in software sales myself. So grew up in sales, then started a company selling kind of sales tech, MarTech. And for scale, we've raised about 150 million in funding, tens of thousands of users and customers, hundreds of millions spent through our platform. And so we've seen a lot and we've enabled a lot of teams in terms of how they go to market. And that's given us a lot of insights and given myself a lot of insights into how I think about building the best outbound motion. I stumbled across Clay in I think it was some LinkedIn posts, and I became obsessed with Clay as I really saw how the automations of Clay really played out. And so I met with the founder of Clay. I like meeting with founders, and then joined the user group for Clay. And then I asked their founder, who's the smartest person we can hire to help us at Sendoso scale out Clay? And voila, he referred me to you. That was a really good referral from the
Yeah.
source.
Kris, like you've been in sales for such a long time, you're so familiar with the space. What was your experience scaling Sendoso's sales with SDRs, thinking about a world where you need less like human resources to scale your outbound, just the status quo compared to where things are going today?
Yeah, so we originally ran the playbook that most SaaS companies did for the last couple decades, which was look at a spreadsheet, look at your revenue goals, look at your pipeline, look at your ACV, and then back into how many meetings you need, and then hire a ton of kind of more junior SDRs to book those meetings. And it was really a head count game of you just need to hire. And we first started that in San Francisco, then really quickly realized that the costs for headcount there and the CAC was too high. So then we opened up an Arizona office. And then as COVID hit, we went remote. That model works well and when there's infinite money available, because you can just throw money at heads. And I say works well, it works okay if you're not looking for profit and you're okay with kind of squinting your eyes at the inefficiencies in human outbounding as your sole source for outbound meetings. And so I think that for a while now, I've thought that model was broken, but it wasn't really until the last couple years where market dynamics shifted. Companies really refocused their energy on efficiencies, on the VC investment crunch and recession-ish time period, really made a lot of companies, a lot of CROs, CMOs, a lot of executives rethink the model. And the humans were the breaking point, which was where we needed to come up with what was our future strategy for outbounding with less of a reliance on infinite humans at a really high cost, low efficiency. And that's where Clay came in.
What are some of the things you saw about Clay that really caught your eye and that you're able to do now that you couldn't before?
Yeah, so I think there's probably 5 or 6 key areas that Clay unlocks and also helps us redeploy SDR. So I'm in this feeling that SDRs could just be more effective and used more wisely, and they're still much needed part of the process. We just need to reimagine the model of, and so I think the first one is around contact data enrichment. I think that is a huge win with Clay. For a while, actually, we relied on outsourced virtual assistants in India to augment that. So that was for like the last decade, a hack in itself, which was, hey, let's contact data enrichment. That can be done through VAs. Next thing was signals and pulling in things like triggers, job changes, other news that is critical for writing personalized sequences, but something that was extremely hard to do without Clay. And again, would take each of these things that I'm outlining is like another 15 minutes or 10 minutes for an SDR to do. So the time efficiency is terrible. Sure, an SDR could enrich some contact information, but doing searches and copying and pasting data, ineffective. Looking for signals can be done, but again, inefficient, ineffective. The next was really data syncs and data lookups. So checking to see, is this person already in Salesforce? When will we engage with them last? Are they a customer or not? And so again, that takes time, makes the human inefficient, something that Clay can do with a couple steps. The next one is really workflows, then adding them to the sequence and doing the follow-up. Again, something that Clay can do with a super fast automation, but takes humans' effort.
What's been your process of implementing this at Sendoso? Like shifting from the old super manual SDR inefficiency kind of model forward? Like how should teams do it? How have you done it? And what have you learned from that?
Yeah, so for us, there is a combination of things. One, it is kind of re-educating our sales development team on what's possible. I think there's a lot of blinders on sales development teams, revenue teams in terms of what's possible. So what I just explained, most people are like, oh yeah, something that a human has to do, or like you can't automate that, or sure, we could do like a bulk personalization message send once. So first it was change management, educating the teams on what's possible. Then it was prioritizing what were the plays or Clay tables we wanted to run first. And then there was a bit of working with Jacob and team on some of our ICP. And then it was really up to Jacob and team to do everything else, which was the contact and data enrichment, the signals, the data syncs, workflows, all that was done through them.
So you mentioned augmenting SDR teams and being more efficient. I think one of the things I've found when I'm talking to sales leaders, especially like sales development leaders that have a large team, they're worried about their SDRs and like how this will impact them. And are we all going to get fired? What's going to happen? I think everyone's in a sense worried, like, is AI going to automate my job? How do you see Clay actually helping SDRs today instead of hurting them?
Yeah, so one is automating those mundane tasks so that they can focus their time on prioritized selling, prioritized intent signals. There's only so many hours in the day. And so if they can spend those hours better, I think that'll be critical and important. I think Clay also helps making sure things don't fall through the cracks. I know with a lot of these, every SDR or AE prospect dreams of this perfect scenario where they do the personalization, they do all the research, they do all this stuff, and they miss a step or they quickly, I don't need to research this one. I'll just blast out an email because I don't have time. So it allows you to ensure kind of compliance in a sense that you're doing everything you should be doing and things aren't falling through the cracks. I think it also evolves the SDR role a bit too and aligns more with potentially better orchestration with marketing because again, it's more repeatable process. It opens up probably paths for more upward career momentum too.
Nice. Misty, anything from you?
Yeah.
I think I'm out of questions.
Yeah, I am curious about where we are going in terms of just not Clay, but just the broader space of these tools. Like what isn't possible that you're excited to become possible? Or do you have ideas on things that we're just on the frontier of and you think we'll see a lot more of? Because I feel like one interesting thing for us to think about also is just that at some point everyone will be doing AI cold email and you're just going to have to always change. Like you can never stop changing your outreach and outbound strategy because the world is changing. And so, like, how do you think about going ahead? What's coming next?
Yeah, I think that throughout history, there's this sense of these different channels, these different strategies that could potentially get saturated. I think it's safe to say that just marketing automation emails maybe were an example of something that got saturated. But what I think that's key about Clay is you're still focused on quality while also hitting on quantity. So you're not letting you're doing more personalization. And ultimately, if you're doing the right homework to the right ICP, you're providing value. And so you're educating the market on the value your service provides. And so I think ultimately, this will be something that is probably more widely used. I could see a lot more people wanting to use Clay, but just 10 years ago, no one even knew about sequencing. It was like you still had to write every email by itself. And so I think as things evolve, people will adapt to them and figure out what's the new channel or what's the new strategy.
Yeah. And then last thing, also just for people listening and wanting to either maybe they're setting up a growth motion from scratch, maybe they already have a team, but what would your sort of ideal recommendation on like team setup be and different roles and who does what? You hinted at some of this before, but curious about the like bigger picture of the org.
Yeah, I think there's a future where there's a more focus on kind of this I think it's under growth, but it's more of a savvy, more technical, more automation focused minded marketer or sales ops or operations person who's going to be able to help do a bit more than your basic like writing of emails or copying and pasting data. And I think some orgs are not set up for that. I think also it creates a great opportunity for an agency sculpted to come in and fill that gap and be able to come in, do a lot more of the technical or a lot more of the onus on using the newest tools and the newest technology, so that the rest of the team can focus on what they know best, which is maybe the ICP, maybe it's the broader campaign marketing, or maybe it's the sales process itself. So I think use the right tool for the right job when you can. And a lot of times bringing in agencies is the best solve for that.
Sweet. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks. It's really funny. It's almost like you're speaking the words out of my brain. It's cool to hear them from someone else, but this is great.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, and great chatting.